welcome to Uncluttered, the podcast where we talk about the connection between faith and organizing. Our focus is not so much on the how of organizing, but we talk about why it's important from a biblical standpoint to leave the chaos and the clutter in our lives behind. Hi, I'm Angie Heitch. I'm an author and certified professional organizer living in East Tennessee.
And I'm Leanna George, an author and former professional organizer living in Houston, Texas. Are you ready to unclutter your heart and your home so you can focus on what matters most? If so, let's dive in. All right, Angie, I'm going to sing a little song for you here. How about that?
Oh, yay. Okay.
Yes, I sang "Let It Go" earlier in the season. So
Yep.
I would entertain you and our listeners with some more singing. How about that?
Okay, good.
All right. Okay. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Oh,
Everywhere
boy.
you go.
Thank you, Leanna. Just hearing just a few bars of that song, now I already know which of the two kind of Christmas people you are.
Are there different kinds of people? I wasn't aware of this.
Well, I mean, I think there are. This is
Oh.
kind of just a construct that I've decided. So it's
Well, then,
not
of
you
course,
won't necessarily find this out. I mean, maybe you will, but I kind of have broken it down to two different kinds of Christmas people.
Okay.
So the first one I call the Buddy the Elf Christmas
Uh-huh.
person. So you know the movie, right?
Yes, of course. I've seen the movie many times, seen the musical. Yes, I
Ooh,
love Eddie the Elf. So cute.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, Buddy the Elf people are like, they're just like, Santa's coming. And what does he say? The best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing loud for all to hear. And they just, I love Christmas. It just crazy, crazy. And there's a whole lot of people
Yes,
that are
there are.
definitely in the Buddy the Elf
Yeah.
camp.
Okay. Okay. And then what's the other kind?
Okay. So then the other kind, probably if you ask most people, they say, well, what's the opposite of Buddy the Elf kind of person? They probably say Grinch.
Yeah.
And I definitely can relate in some ways to the Grinch character. But what I usually think of is actually related to going back to my nerdy Lord of the Rings references. So
Oh, yes.
So there's a meme that was popular for a while that has a character named Theoden.
Okay.
And he and two other people on either side of him, they're standing, getting ready for a battle. And it is really dark and it's storming. They're like soaked. And they've got
Hmm.
these serious scowls on their faces. And Théoden saying, so it begins.
Mm.
So you've got, it's coming, Santa's coming, I love Christmas. And so it begins. So I
Mm.
kind of talk about the Buddy the Elf people and then the Theoden Christmas people. So
Okay.
that's what I've
Okay.
made up.
All right. So if those kind of like the two ends of the spectrum,
Yeah.
I would say I fall kind of closer to Buddy the Elf.
Okay.
Not quite right in the middle, but maybe like a 70 Buddy, 30
Okay.
Theoden. Is that how you say his name?
Theoden. Yeah. And it's definitely a spectrum. I mean, there's very few people that are clearly in one camp or the other. But okay.
Yeah.
So you got
Yeah.
70% Buddy, 30% Theoden. What do you
Yeah.
like and not like?
Oh, well, there's a whole list, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it in this episode.
Yeah, we
The
will.
more important question is, where do you fall on that spectrum?
Okay. So if I have to pick a camp, I am pretty solidly in the Theoden camp. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I am in the so it begins. So the first
Oh,
time the first person that says the word Christmas to me, it's never pleasant. Let me just say,
oh,
because for me, I've kind of come to correlate Christmas equals stress.
mm,
So that's not necessarily a really good parallel. So, if I'm out shopping and, like at the hobby stores, I'm sure they've already got their Christmas stuff out.
oh, for
But
sure. Yes.
yeah, anyway, and I think just like, clutter is an equal opportunity robber of joy and distraction from our priorities. So there's definitely clutter associated with Christmas too. And so it can creep in.
Mm. And so that's where you have the issue. That's where you
Yes.
makes you
Yes.
lean to that. Okay. Okay. I
Mhm.
get that. I get it. Yeah. And I can see your point. I mean, clutter is definitely an issue in any season, right?
Yep.
So the holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year, I mean, Christmas more so, is
Yeah.
really no exception. Yeah. So
Right.
when and how and why? I mean, I'm just kind of curious. How did all this come about? I mean, was there one particular thing that started it all, or?
Mm, no, I wouldn't say any one particular thing. It's kind of a combination of things. So, if we're going to talk about the clutter, we always talk about clutter in three categories: physical, schedule, and attention. And I would
Hmm.
say most of my issues, well, I don't know, all of them are a problem, but I would say the number one source for me is gifts. Everything surrounding
Okay.
gifts,
All
who
right.
you're expected to give them to, who you might get them from, and what if someone gives and I didn't plan to give them back? Do I need to plan something? And then the time to figure out what to do, and then to go buy, and then the wrap. Okay, I'm gonna have to say I love wrapping. I'm a little bit like Buddy on the wrapping. I love that.
Okay.
Um,
So you're at
because
95%.
yeah, well, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say I'm 95.5. I will say I'm 90.10. No, 85.15, maybe.
Okay. Okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
but yeah, so the clutter of the gifts, like, I don't wanna give people clutter, I don't wanna receive clutter. And then the
Mm,
schedule clutter of, well, we've already most of us got kinda busy lives, and then holidays, like, boom, we just ramp it up because now we've got to buy the gifts and go to the special things and bake and decorate and da 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 da.
yeah.
And then, yeah, I heard a therapist tell me one time, and I think it's so true, that around the holidays, it's like every woman in America gets a part-time job that they're not paid for, whether they
Right.
want it or not. Like,
Yeah.
here you go. Here's a bunch of extra stuff you gotta do, whether you
Yeah.
want to or not. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And then the attention clutter for me is more about the anxiety, getting it
Mm,
all done.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I hear you. I mean, I can definitely relate. And I've had my own, I mean, there have been times when I don't put up a Christmas tree.
mm,
There have been 1 or 2 years when we have not put up Christmas trees, and not
mm,
because I'm anti-Christmas. I just, was just like, I had to choose, right? And
mm,
we travel a lot at Christmas. That's in our, because our kids are, now that they're grown, they get that time off. So those are
yeah.
really big family trip times. And so I'm like, well, we're not going to be here, so why put the thing up? I've quit doing Christmas cards. I've,
Mm.
I've had, different things where my husband has said, well, now you're just becoming a Grinch, bah humbug, kind of thing. And
Oh,
it's not. It's just I've learned and seen too many Christmases go by where I've lost sight of the real reason for the
mhm.
season. And I've had to try to balance that out and live within my own things. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love it. We have last year we had all had matching pajamas.
Oh, that's
We
so
play
cute.
we play Hallmark bingo.
Good.
We have all sorts of fun stuff. So I do love it, but I've learned what works for me and what doesn't work for me.
Mm,
And so I think that's why we want to talk about that today, right? We want to help people who may
yes.
be struggling with this. You want to focus on the reason for the season, the whole purpose of Christmas and Christ's birth. But at the same time, can get sucked into this vortex of the
Oh,
world
yeah.
and all that it encumbers. And so we just have to figure out how to balance that and how to make it work for each of us, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So we're going to share some inspiration and some tips. And while I don't think it will automatically launch me straight into Betty the Elf category or any of our listeners, our goal is that we would be able to simplify the season
Hmm.
so that we can focus on what matters most. That's what we talk about always in our podcast. So
Yeah.
I wanted to share some things that I learned during a webinar I'm in a group called Faithful Organizers, a group of
Hmm.
Christian professional organizers all over the country. And it's just a fantastic group. Um, so a couple of years ago at the holidays, we had a webinar by one of our members. Her name is Tracy Axcell, Axcell. I'll include this in the show notes. So the focus of the webinar was based on her devotional book called The Gifts of the Manger.
Mm.
And the overall focus of that book and our webinar was how to make sure that our Christmas is more centered on Christ. And I just found it so helpful. And I
Ooh,
wanted to share from some of the material from that
that sounds
webinar.
really good. That that
Yeah.
that sounds really good. So I'm sure we would all love to benefit from that. So what did you learn, Angie? What
Yeah.
can you share with us from that we can hopefully use it to shift our attitude and our perspective this holiday season?
Right. So I think this quote from the webinar is a really, really good place to start. And it's something that I continuously remind myself of. And she says, and I think this is straight from her book, can we look at Christmas with different eyes? What would be a successful Christmas? What would be God's measuring stick for a successful Christmas? It is a choice to celebrate Christmas intentionally centered on Christ.
Mm, wow.
It's good,
Those are
isn't it?
some really deep, yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Really, really good. I love that. What would be God's measuring stick for a successful Christmas? I mean, if we
Mhm.
look back at the scripture, the very first Christmas was very simple, right? It
Oh,
was in a
yeah.
manger, right?
Mhm.
Three gifts. Very simple, very
Yeah.
simple. Wasn't a huge party. And so I think that question really does make you stop and think, right?
Mhm.
And because at Christmas and as Christians, we're always striving to live according to God's pattern, not the world's pattern. And it can
Yep.
creep up so easily, right? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
even Christ himself said, "You are in this world, but you're not of it." Um, and so I love this verse from Colossians. It says, "Since then you have been raised with Christ, set your heart on things above where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not earthly things." And I
Mm.
think, especially at Christmas, it's so important that we keep our minds set on the heavenly things.
Yes.
Um,
I
you
think
know,
I think what you're saying about if we don't really put forth effort to keep our minds centered across, it will be sucked into this vortex. I mean, it is just inevitable.
yeah,
You know, it's like if we were standing there beside this black hole with just tremendous force. If we don't do anything, we're going to get sucked in. I mean, so
yeah,
it really takes a concerted effort. But the years when I have put this kind of thinking and these scriptures into practice, it's been a whole different Christmas. And I will
mm,
say that since this webinar, um, I'm inching closer to the Buddy the Elf, but it's not just from the, "Oh, Christmas is wonderful," but because I'm trying so hard to keep Christ at the center. It's still
mm.
a battle, but I'm telling you these principles work. So let's, talk about a little bit more about that question about God's measuring stick and what would be a successful Christmas from the world's standpoint or
Hmm.
from God's view. So I have this list here of how we would describe it from the different ways. And when I read this list, just keep in mind that any of the things that I say, the world would say this is successful. It doesn't mean any of these things are wrong. It
Yeah.
just means that what is the focus behind the events or the actions. So here's how I would describe a successful Christmas from the world's view. Was I able to decorate my home attractively? Did I find the perfect gifts for each person on my list and package them beautifully? Did I send holiday cards in a timely manner to friends and family? Did I attend the right holiday events dressed in festive attire? Did I bake delicious holiday treats and share them with loved ones? Did I take part in all of the expected family holiday traditions? Did I give generously to charities? And honestly, we could probably just keep going, but
We
that
could, yeah.
enough that right there is enough to just be like,
I'm
"Oh,
exhausted.
man, that's such a high standard.
Yeah.
No wonder we all feel stressed out." Like,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
So, here's how I would Tracy, in her book, would describe a successful holiday season from God's view. And just
Okay.
listen to how different it is. Did I focus on others instead of myself?
Mm,
Did I spend regular time in God's word and in prayer, even when the days were hectic? Was I kind to other shoppers and employees as I shopped for Christmas gifts? Was I gentle and loving with family and friends?
mm,
Did I prioritize spreading God's love everywhere I went? Did I focus on the gift of Jesus? Did I listen to the Holy Spirit as I was prompted to see the needs of others? Boy, that I don't think those lists could be any different.
No, they're as different as night and day. I
Yeah,
mean, they are just
they
hugely
are.
different. And when you look at them, they just you can't help but think, there's a different standard there.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I could still decorate my home attractively, buy really good gifts, attend events. I could still do those things with this focus. So
Yeah.
it doesn't mean it's either you ditch the gifts and the decorations and the events and because you just want to focus. No, it's not an either or. It's
Yeah.
really a mindset shift.
Yeah.
So
Well, and then the neat thing too is that when you have that shift and people are looking at you and they're noticing something's different, right?
mhm.
Then that gives you the opportunity to share, not only share, um, why you're doing things differently, but the reason behind it.
Mhm.
And, and then you get the opportunity to share the gospel with them and,
Yeah,
all it entails. So
yeah,
it really is great.
true. I think it would be so cool if, a listener, let's say a local listener that knows me, it would be really cool if sometime around the holiday season, this year, next year, who knows, they'd be like, "Hey, you are acting more like Buddy the Elf every year. I think you must be following Tracy's advice." I really have a long way to go, and so but maybe even, this whole public accountability to say that
Yeah.
this is going to be my standard. This
Yeah.
is what I want to be my standard every year, so I'm
Yeah.
committing to it, raising my right hand,
There
putting
you
my
go.
hand on the Bible, but, I mean, it's so good, and when we do have a Christ-centered Christmas, I think we could describe it by the, scripture about the fruits of the Spirit, Galatians
Mm.
5:22 and 23. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. So if our Christmas is Christ-centered, it's gonna feel that way, and
Oh,
that sounds
isn't that great?
amazing.
It really does. It really
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
So normally we don't talk a lot about the hows, but I think in this situation it would be really good to give if you could help our listeners out with some ideas to figure out how we gonna get this uncluttered Christmas.
Yeah. So, I mean, it starts with it, like Angie said, which is getting the right focus and
Mhm.
getting the right, frame of mind. But then you have to start looking at it from an organizational standpoint and thinking, okay, well,
Yeah.
I've got the physical clutter, I've got the schedule clutter, and I've got the
Mhm.
attention clutter. And they are all going to affect my holiday season. And how can I best simplify that?
Yeah.
So let's break it down into each of the three categories. That's what we've been doing all season for season two, looking at each of those. And we're going to look at each of those and give you some ideas on how to manage and simplify the physical clutter, the schedule clutter, and the attention. So we'll start with physical clutter. And of course, when you think about that and you think about Christmas, of course, it's gifts, right?
Mhm.
It's all about the gifts. And so I think, how do you keep from, like you talked about, your stress being giving or receiving clutter when in terms of gifts. So here are a few suggestions. I wanted to say exceptions.
Mm.
Suggestions. But the first one is prevent Christmas clutter in other people's homes. Okay. And this is really hard for me
Mm.
because I don't like being told what to get people. But Angie suggested getting a wish list, and I'm like, "Ugh, I don't want that. I want to surprise them. I mean, I might as well go, hey, here's $50. Go get yourself something nice. It's just, I don't
Well,
like
and
that.
you know what? I hear that, and I think sometimes when we know someone very, very well and know them well enough to know the types of things they like,
Yeah.
um, I think that that's definitely doable, especially if we get them something that if for some reason we just happen to not hit it right on the head, that it's returnable if that happens, but
Yeah. I get
I
it.
hear you. You are not alone in those, desires to want to find the perfect thing and it be a surprise. That's
That
not
gift
wrong.
Yeah, that and gift cards. Don't get me started on that. But anyway, we're going back to focus here. You know, asking for a wish list is one way to cut down and clutter in other people's homes, right? Obviously, like Angie said, if we know them really well and we know what their likes and that kind of stuff. But I think we also need to want to make sure that we're giving them something that they like, love, and use, right? Because
Mhm.
otherwise it becomes clutter.
Yep.
And one good way to do that is through this app called Giftster. And I know, Angie, you use this app quite often. I tried it, I think, a year or two ago. It really is a great app.
Mhm.
You can find it online or in the App Store. And basically, what it is it allows you to put every family member in there, and they get to create a wish list. And they can add items from anywhere with online links to retailers, which is great, because there's nothing worse than somebody giving you something that was on your wish list and you wanted plaid and they got you the polka dot, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because you didn't know what to. So you can put the exact link in there,
Mhm.
and so it takes the second guess out of it. And then you can share the list within a family group, and it keeps up with what's been bought.
Yeah.
But it doesn't let people see, what, because it
Yes.
helps somebody go, oh, well, I got that. Well, I already bought that, so it
Mhm.
helps with
Oh,
that
yeah. We've
too.
had that.
And then you could even use it, if you wanted to do something which has become very popular, which is draw names, right?
Mhm.
People a lot of times, so that you can, instead of doing 5 million gifts for people, everybody draws names. That's kind of popular. But it can do that as well. And then when you're giving gifts to others, think about clutter-free gifts. Things like consumables, food, drinks, toiletry items, experiences like a membership to a zoo, or a gym, or the museum, or tickets to a play or concert. Like, I would have loved if somebody gave me an early Christmas gift to Taylor Swift. That would have been
Mhm.
like
Yeah, and
awesome.
so inexpensive,
Yeah,
you
it's
know? Right. Yeah.
yeah. Or a Broadway play. I'm happy with that too.
Yeah, that too,
Yeah.
inexpensive, right,
Yeah.
easy,
And then
yeah.
clutter-free, of course, gift cards. Again, that's my own personal thing, that it's more of her counseling session than, podcast
You and
episode.
a bunch of other people are not fans of gift cards, and
I don't
I
like
do
them
not
either.
have to convince you.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
So, anyway, that's how to prevent clutter in other people's lives, and how to prevent it in your house when it's Christmas time. Do some decluttering before the gifts ever come.
Mm.
I mean, they're coming. I mean, it's a given, right? We know they're coming. So take some time, declutter your kids' toys, declutter your closets, your hobby
Mhm.
interests, whatever it is, but make space for them, because if you wait until you've got all the new stuff and the old stuff, then you get really overwhelmed.
Yep,
Um,
absolutely.
so yeah, and then again, think about those clutter-free. Asking, if you're going to do a wish list, ask for some of those clutter-free gift ideas. And then again, if you do get a gift you don't like, don't be afraid to exchange it, or regift it.
Very
I mean,
strategically.
do you see that? Did
Yes.
you see that Seinfeld episode where they regifted the label maker? Did you
Yes,
ever
I
see that
did.
one?
Yes, love me a Seinfeld episode. Yep.
Love Seinfeld and love a label maker. But anyway, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it would be more beneficial that if somebody gave you a label maker and that's not your ideal gift, that you exchange it in for something that you would love, because then you'll be more likely to use it. And honestly, I would rather know that, okay, I tried, I made the effort, it wasn't quite, didn't quite get into the ballpark, and so, you know, please just go find some that will make you happy
Yep.
instead. So yeah, so that's it for physical clutter. What about schedule clutter, Angie?
All right, the schedule clutter. So one of the reasons the holiday season is so stressful is because we tend to fill our calendars too full.
Mm-hmm.
So here are some suggestions for how to alleviate some of that stress. You've got to be very, very strategic and intentional. So, first of all, I'll say don't just automatically add all the usual things that you add. So, just because you've always baked homemade cookies and done the ornament swap and gone to the Christmas cantata and made the cards yourself and you've got this big list you always did, doesn't mean you always have to do that.
Right.
Or that you
Yeah.
have to do all of it. Some years, like you talked about, sometimes it might be a year to skip that, or just know that you just can't put too much. This is a great suggestion. This is my favorite one about the schedule clutter. So if you're with whoever you live with, partners, siblings, children, whatever, take a poll, ask everyone, what is your favorite thing about Christmas? Say, like, for me, it wouldn't feel like Christmas if we didn't get to fill in the blank.
Yeah.
You might be surprised at the things you learn. You may have thought, oh, well, everybody loves when we go caroling or go look at lights or whatever. And then you poll them and it's like, nobody likes that but you. And you've been stressed out about it. Well, goodness gracious, that's easy to drop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So find out what's the most meaningful for you and your family. Make sure to get those incorporated and then let some of the other ones go.
Yeah.
And speaking of letting go, also like leave some empty space on your calendar. I don't know if it's just me and the age I'm getting, but when I look at the calendar for the week and I look at the evenings, like tonight, I don't have anywhere to go. And I'm so excited. So
Yes.
in the holidays when that happens, then often that'll be like, "Oh, let's watch a Christmas movie." And for
Yeah.
me, I'll be watching either a Christmas movie or a chick flick and wrapping gifts, and that makes me happy. So leave some white space. Some of those unplanned times are going to be your favorite Christmas memories.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I thought when you said let it go, you were going to ask me to sing again. So
I almost asked you. Feel free to if you want,
No,
if you feel inspired.
music is singing is not really my thing.
Well, I think you're good at it, so.
Thank you. Oh, all right.
All
So
right,
let's
so we've
look
talked
at
about the physical, we've talked
mhm.
about the schedule, and how now do you have some tips for my old arch nemesis of attention clutter at the holidays?
Yes, yes. So if you want to remember, we talked about attention clutter being three different things. It was hindrances, it was hobbies, and it was emotions, right? Basically, those three things. One way to read, and most of the time during the holidays, attention is going to be because we just have so many things on our mind and we have so many
Absolutely.
things on our schedule. And so, like we talked about in episode 7 of season 2, if once you declutter your schedule, I think that your attention clutter definitely drops down a
Mhm.
notch or two. So just because you don't have as much going on, so that could be one thing. So they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But I think it's also about having these unrealistic expectations about the holidays.
Mhm. Yeah.
So many of us watch Hallmark movies now that we think that Christmas has to look like this Hallmark
Mhm.
movie. A minute ago, or at the beginning of the episode, I talked about that Norman Rockwell painting. Right? We
Uh-huh.
have these expectations, and no matter how many times we paint things in our heads or in our minds of how we want the season or the holiday to look, it's just not going to measure up.
Mhm.
It just won't. It will always fall short. And so, because even the Hallmark movie is not perfect, I can promise you, you can go through and you're like, wait a minute, why is there,
Yeah, there was
this
a
or
plot
that?
hole there. Yeah.
It's just they're rather unrealistic. So,
Mhm.
but when we put our focus on Christ at Christmas, we know that we're never going to fall short with Him,
Mhm.
and that
So true.
it's always going to be just what it needs to be. So we can just need to let go of those unrealistic expectations
Yes.
and receive the kind of peace that we will never find in this world. And it tells us in Isaiah, He is the Prince of Peace. When they
Mhm.
are saying He will come and He will be the Prince of Peace, the everlasting Father. Um, that's what He wants to give us. It says in John
Mhm.
14:27, peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. So let go of those unrealistic expectations and just really allow your heart and your mind and your time to focus on Him and what He is wanting to give you this holiday.
So good. So good. Yeah. So there's so much to think about when we start thinking about uncluttering our Christmas and being Christ centered. So before we close, let's do just a little bit of a summary. So whether we are a big fan of Christmas like Buddy the Elf or we're more like Theoden, no matter where we are on that spectrum, we can all simplify the season and find peace and contentment only if we focus on God. And it takes a conscious choice to celebrate Christmas centered on Christ. We can prevent gift clutter in our home and the homes of those that we're giving to by making really smart choices. We can unclutter our schedule, choosing only the meaningful activities and leaving some white space that will also help the clutter in our minds. And then I love Leanna's suggestion to let go of those unrealistic expectations. So I hope that this will inspire you to have the most peaceful and simplified season you've ever had.
Yes, that is our hope and our prayer for you this holiday season. So that is it for this episode of Uncluttered. Thank you for joining us. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to send me those Taylor Swift tickets, I think she'll still be in Europe. So feel free. You can email them at contact at uncluttered.faith.
Yeah, give them the wrong address. That'd be good.
Yeah, no, don't do that. Contact at uncluttered.faith with an airline ticket to go see her in Asia and Europe. But no, realistically, we would just love to hear from you. Let us know how these tips and ideas and just truth from God's words is encouraging you to simplify your season and really put the focus where it needs to be.
Yeah, and let us know. We'd love to know if you're more in the buddy or the Theoden camp. And if you have other ideas, we can share them on our social media. We'd love to hear from you on that too. Contact at uncluttered.faith. So we love hearing from listeners. We get really excited about that. So we are just so thankful for you taking the time to listen. Thank you for being in the Uncluttered community. And just remember, until next time, an uncluttered life is an abundant life.